Welcome to our workshop on acute stress management. We'll try not to keep you. By the end of this presentation, we hope that you'll better understand the role it takes in your professional life as a business owner and as an entrepreneur. Today we're going to talk about what stress is, the fight or flight response, and kind of a 50-foot view of stress and why bother. We're also going to look at the general causes of stress and its effects, both short-term and long-term. And we're going to talk about 3 ways that we've formulated for managing stress and using it as a tool. So, first of all, what is stress? The natural first question about anything is what, and a natural second question is why bother? As humans, somewhere along the way, our ancestors got power hungry in order to survive. Long before we became sentient and took over the world Skynet style, we wanted to control all of the variables we could get our hands on. When we don't control everything, and this is usually the case, we get a sickening itch in our brains, otherwise called stress. In one sense, stress is a natural reaction when we feel like we don't have enough control. From another angle, however, stress is a holdover. It is such an unpleasant stew of emotions and physiological responses that we wish it didn't happen. It affects each of us differently. I know when I'm stressed out because I start yawning uncontrollably. About every 2 to 3 seconds, I will yawn. In the past, it may have gone further into the realm of heart palpitations, dissociation. I've even passed out before. Understand, however, that I've been diagnosed with a more pathological type of anxiety, and it gives me a very different perspective on stress. The part of the brain that plays the biggest role in what we call stress is the amygdala. Science has found that the smaller the amygdala, the milder the stress reaction, and sometimes I wish I could have this part of my brain burned with a laser if I could get away with it.
I just had LASIK, so I mean...
Yeah, part of your eye burned with the laser, but...
Yeah, lasers aren't cool.
But why do we do it? The fight or flight response is a holdover from when our ancestors were hunting and being hunted. Think of it as autopilot on steroids. When the going gets tough, we downshift and mash the gas. The sympathetic nervous system makes us bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, while the parasympathetic nervous system, the other half, if you will, makes us rest and digest like lazy cats. So you can imagine which part plays the biggest role in a stress reaction. Epinephrine wakes up your body like nitrous in a top fuel dragster. Your heart rate goes into the triple digits, and you're ready to move faster and more decisively than ever before. But how is this applicable when I'm sitting at a desk? These were life and death moments for our ancestors, and this stress reaction still saves our skins in emergencies on a daily basis. In the business world, when you're sitting at your desk thinking about what somebody said or what you're going to say, do we really need our bodies to do this? We're preparing for mortal danger that many times at the end of the day we know isn't really there, but we can't turn it off. Let's talk about good stress. Don't turn it off. It is one of the most important tools we have as humans, and it is the main reason why we are more successful in the business world than our friends in the kingdoms of Flora. In a rather dubious survey I found, it was determined that more than 98% of board members in Fortune 500 companies have been animals since the 1950s, as opposed to being plants, fungi, and other autotrophs. But what does this mean for us? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But why does it have to make us feel so sick? Have you ever wondered why anyone would elect to jump out of a perfectly good airplane? I know if it isn't going down in flames, I think I might stick around and see what happens. It might make it to the ground, especially if there's nothing going wrong with it. So I'll stick around. Who here likes to ride roller coasters? When you work out, and especially when you do cardio, are you not trying to simulate the effects of a somewhat stressful lifestyle on your body? We've all heard the typical entrepreneur stereotypes and axioms. They're people with nothing to lose. Big risk means big reward. Entrepreneurs are people who are naturally less risk averse and they have grace under pressure. Risk would seem to be the running gag here, but why then does anyone get out of bed in the morning? It's because a lot of people use stress as just another tool that we're given. Many times they don't know what they're doing differently, and they'll actually have a hard time understanding why you're so stressed out or why you're responding to stress differently. It's true that we aren't always on an even playing field when it comes to stressors and how we respond to them. But we do have quite a few in common as far as responses and as far as stressors.
So causes of workplace stress. I apologize in advance to the plants, fungi, and other flora in the audience. You may find this section hard to relate to. We can be stressed out by many things. I guarantee you've been stressed out by one of these thoughts, or a very similar one. Am I going to have this done by the deadline? I wonder what she's going to think. What does it say about us? I hope they don't take it the wrong way. What if they ask a question I'm not prepared for? I hope no one finds out who did this. I'm a good guy. It was an accident. Who knew a fall from that height would prove fatal? I'm not a doctor. I hope no one sees through this disguise, and I can make it across state lines unnoticed. In brief, stress is easy to come by after you make the decision to get out of bed in the morning. In order to harness stress and use it as a tool, we need to make some key observations about stress. How stress affects you. Short term. In the short term, stress makes us sick. At the end of the day, we all have different tics to show that we're stressed. We do have all of that a lot in common, however. You can feel trapped, you can feel small, you can feel like you're out of control of yourself or the situation, you can make rash decisions. Long term. Stress can take a toll on your body and age you prematurely. I'm sure you've seen stress-related illness, such as high blood pressure or obesity. You also may pile on with your vices, such as alcohol and other drugs. Some even resort to suicide because they feel so small and so trapped. On the other hand, stress is like fiber. A healthy lifestyle is not one without stress. It can give us a cathartic sense of release and clean out some of the cobwebs when we engage in a stressful situation and find out how to overcome it, whether you win or lose. Our hearts are designed to beat, and our brains are designed to think after all. A person who lives a career without overcoming risk and stressors of some sort will have a very hard time feeling fulfilled at the end of the day. There are inherent risks associated with getting out of bed in the morning. You know you have the courage to take that first step. Every step is the first. How stress affects others. Credibility. A leader is not always someone in a position of legitimate power. You have undoubtedly met a person who is a leader of sorts and responded poorly to stress.
Yeah.
This is among the easiest ways to undermine your own credibility. As a passenger, I won't feel safe when the driver is emotionally compromised. Let's say the car in front of us is going way too slow, or someone cuts us off, and they lose their temper. I don't trust this person to drive anymore because I don't think they're quick to catch on. You never had control over how other drivers behave. So why would you be stressed when you're reminded that you don't control those variables? On the other hand, if you're facing adversity, but your leader doesn't flinch, then you may safely assume they have control over the situation. Stress is a contagion. When a leader type is stressed or uneasy, it can be contagious. When one animal lacks a key piece of information and he goes into fight or flight mode, it's for the best that the rest of the pack turns up the nitrous as well and gets ready to react to adversity. Think of a leader as a tracker of variables. When you perceive your leader as being stressed out, you're apt to wonder endlessly about what she knows that you don't know. Stress spreads uncontrollably, and the entire group can feel sick to their stomach if you don't get under control.
Yeah. So when it comes to managing stress, nature's caffeine, it's natural to be stressed before a presentation or a job interview. It isn't always easy, but use your stress just like you would with a cup of coffee, or like I said before with yerba mate, because yerba mate's so much better. It's a tea, naturally caffeinated, doesn't really give you that much headaches, but yeah, you'll like it or your money back. Anyways, besides the point for now, actually. Or your other favorite stimulants with questionable side effects. Yeah, we'll go with that. Your stress helps you more than you know when you're trying to make a sale, giving a presentation or answering difficult questions about a suspicious death. In that environment, what are some things that could help you? You want to think on your feet. You want to speak decisively. You want to be able to recover from mistakes quickly and stay on track. Your fight or flight response can give you all of these and more for free. Just pay, shipping and handling, maybe processing. We might even double up your offer. You'll have to deal with your body trying to fidget, constantly asking yourself, when is this all going to be over? That's the cost of admission. When someone knocks it out of the park, it isn't safe to assume that they just didn't have a stressful reaction. Your sympathetic nervous system is only trying to help and you're ignoring it. Emotional hygiene. Another technique is not necessarily trying to put a yoke on your stress, nor should it be taken to mean burying your stress deep down inside. No one ever cleaned a room by closing a door. Have you? I have, at times.
Was it actually clean though?
But usually...
It can be out of sight, out of mind, but it's still
Yeah.
gonna be up there stressing me out.
Yeah.
So
Depends on my mood. But usually I wouldn't, obviously. Instead, keep your stress there and look at it as just another variable that you may or may not have control over. Don't try to bury it, but don't let it do the talking. Think of your stress as a coworker who is an expert, not just a coworker, who is an expert that you rely on every single day, but otherwise has a terrible business mentality, and you don't frequently go to him for advice, or she, depends, your work environment, maybe more girls or guys. So yeah, it may sound cheesy, but fake it till you make it. A lot of people in California do that. It's a good way to sum it up. You aren't stopping yourself from getting infected with the stress bug, but you are putting on a mask to reduce the spread. As we went over previously, stress is a contagion. It's a two-way street. If your colleagues don't know you're stressed, they won't catch the bug, and you will be surrounded by people with a good base level of comfort and hopefully competence as well. The key thing to remember here is that relationships in the business world generally exist because of mutual benefit that each party stands to gain from the other. When you are pitching a product to investors, for instance, they are meanwhile pitching financial backing and their experience in human capital. Hopefully, I've talked to some investors that their arrogance kind of takes over and they don't even pitch that. But if you go to the right investors, obviously, we're in the Austin area, so I mean, you could find plenty of competent investors. This two-way street also applies, to job interviews, let's say, business deals, and even forward-looking statements in your filings. When you give something, you are also taking a response and being aware if this is bilateral. Bilateral exchange can keep you from feeling so small, so trapped, and can help you to see what variables you do have control over. Manual override. This one works, but shouldn't be your first option. It's like pressing the eject button. When you have an acute stress reaction and nothing else works, separate yourself from the situation. Make the situation go away, if only even for 5 minutes. Take a walk outside or go do something that gives you another perspective on the situation or requires you to think about something else. For instance, hiking. Hiking is very good. You can hear the ambiance of the birds chirping in the distance, feel that beautiful, amazing wind rushing past you and hitting your face. It's just so refreshing that all those minerals from the trees and from the water, the streams around you, all this kind of stuff. It's absolutely incredible. It's a very refreshing.
And you don't always have to go far to disconnect and get away from whatever's causing the stress. And you don't have to go away for long.
Yeah, like in Austin, there's tons of hiking trails.
sometimes even just opening the window to feel the fresh air.
Yeah, Austin, Colleen, any one of these situations or areas. There's a bunch of areas to hike in. There's a bunch of areas for water and stuff like that as well. Usually this requires physical separation from the stressor. It's really manual override. In other words, you feel trapped for a moment. All you can do is see the stressful situation, and it colors all of reality. After all, your sympathetic nervous system's fight or flight response is waiting for you to pick one, fight or flight. By picking flight, even temporarily, you may be able to break the spell. Go as far as it is feasible to separate yourself from the situation, physically or metaphorically speaking. Just use your brain and body for something else. It could be anything. Take a shower, brush your teeth, turn off your phone or computer for 10 to 30 minutes. Take a walk or go out for a drive. I love driving. I know you guys love driving too. Even use that 20/20 rule that a lot of ophthalmologists recommend as well, where you, for every 20 minutes that you spend on your computer looking at the screen, you look 20 feet away from you for 20 seconds and return back to the task at hand on the computer. And it makes you more engaged. It also reduces eye strain too, because the main issue with dry eyes is in terms of dry eyes is basically it's the eyes just get super dried because of the lack of blinking. Whenever a person does not blink, it creates stress on the eyes, and so that also causes other things to happen too. It can make you more physically anxious. It can lead to a lot of different things.
It compounds.
It all compounds together, exactly. So it's important to check these different aspects. So you can basically ask yourself, was there something around the house that needed to be done? Did you need to wash the windows, dust your 19th century toilet plunger collection? Not only are you separating yourself from the situation, and not only are you getting something done that needed doing, but you are also giving yourself responsibilities and using your brain for something else. But whatever you do, always have a solid plan to come back from it. Now that you've seen the outside world, smelled the roses, and no longer feel trapped, you can just jump right back into the action with a new perspective on the world.
I think the key parts there were responsibility, but also having a plan to come back, for sure. But that concludes the formal portion of our workshop on stress and the role it plays in your professional life. While it can easily take a toll on you, your colleagues, and your work, it can also motivate and inspire. Hope you found some of this information useful, and we thank you for your time. So, what do you do to get away from it all?
My de-stressors. Anything outside. Fresh air for me is a must. Just walking outside, trees, leaves, fresh air, seeing how small I am. It's great. And exercise.
Well,
yeah, right. So walking, one of my favorite things to do when I'm stressed out, I'll go to the lake, watch the sunset. There's all these cliffs around me. It's beautiful. And I'm like, oh, I am so small. My problems mean nothing. Yeah. When all day I was taking them to be over 100%, and they're literally 0.01%.
I've also experienced that same thing too. Whenever you go out of the country too, for example, all your stresses from that country you were in just instantly go away. That's
everything's unplugged. Yeah.
Literally, 100%. You're just going, and then right when the plane comes back to the country, everything comes back. All that stress and anxiety just comes right back at you. And so that's the thing. So how would you recommend? Let's say, how would you guys recommend dealing with that kind of stress if it comes back at you once you're coming back to that country in that kind of situation?
Well, the problem with that is the plan to come back sort of thing, but also responsibilities. Because you weren't using the part of your brain that handles responsibilities, gets things done that need doing. When you were in that other country, you were disconnecting, but you weren't cleaning things, you weren't holding yourself responsible for something. So that part of your brain is ready to jump right back into the stress in the worst way possible. And that's where having a plan to come back into the action is probably the most important step of our third tip. you need to get ready to, you may actually need to be ready to think about work on vacation, if that's what we're talking about, vacation. But with acute stress, like going for a drive, going for a walk,
Is it essentially like balancing your work stress and your like non-stressful time, like trying to find that balance essentially, like?
Yeah, and it's you have to think about which parts of your brain, which parts of yourself are used for certain things throughout the day, whether it's relaxing, whether it's cleaning something, whether it's working on something that has a deadline, and give those parts of your brain some variety. Because if you're sitting at your desk poring over the same thing for 3 hours straight, you're going to get less done in 3 hours than you could have probably done in 10 minutes if you actually, disengaged once in a while.
And because of that, I would say it's more of a perceptual thing in reality. A lot of times, the amygdala starts firing off whenever it gets reminded at the scene that it saw when it got stressed. And so it associates that scene with that stress, and it makes you feel uncomfortable or not at ease. So it's important to remind yourself, I believe from my experience, to reframe that situation. So instead of saying, oh, you know what, this is associated with this kind of stressful situation. Let's say, for instance, you're at work and you're extremely busy, tons of tasks to do, and they're not very exciting because you're a very creative individual. So instead of thinking like that, you could say, hey, what are the core values of this company that I work at? Remind yourself of the core values. Remind yourself of the mission that you have at that company. Remind yourself of why you started working there. Get yourself passionate about it, and then at that point, now you use your vacation time to fuel you in your work setting, or whenever you carry out the tasks that you have at hand in that country that you reside in. So I think that's a very important thing to do, is just to go ahead and see things from a different framework.
And to bring it back to the professional world, when you are in an entrepreneurial position, maybe you are the owner of the company, you will hopefully not, but it's very likely that at first you're going to be putting out all the fires, and you'll be a jack of all trades. The main thing about acute stress in the workplace is that you create spaces where you feel small and feel trapped. And
it's cute. It's cute stress. Adorable stress, right?
Adorable stress. There you go. That's a good way to remember it. But you're going to, if you sit at the same desk every day and you have a stressful job, that is going to be where you automatically feel trapped. The moment you sit down in that chair, if you move that desk around the room, if you move to a different office, if you pack lights so you can work from anywhere, that does actually have a huge effect on it. But it's that's been my experience when it comes to managing spaces. When you are an entrepreneur, you're going to have a lot of different spaces. And
are you trading spaces?
I suppose. Yeah, and that's ultimately the goal, is just swap them around enough and give your brain enough variety that it
should be on
can see
HVTV, right? Is that what it was called?
HGTV.
HGTV.
But you want to give your brain enough variety so that when you get out of the action, you disconnect, and when you get back into the action, whatever it was that was stressing you out, you see the rest of the world, because the brain wants to fixate on the task at hand always, and that's a good thing, but not when you can't get anything done and you're just sitting there staring at a wall, because you can't get yourself out of that space, whether it's physically your desk, whether it's a mental space you put yourself into.
Yeah, I think when it comes to, did you have anything to say right now, or did you want me to? Because I have like 30 things to say.
Not really.
Not right now. So basically, the other thing too is whenever you feel like you're very bored and there's nothing to do, the most important thing to do is anything, whatever it is. Literally just punching something punching your bed, punching whatever it is, just something that's inanimate. Obviously, you don't want to sit there and punch a person, or a dog or something crazy, But basically, just do something. If you're in bed, you roll yourself off that bed and you're on the floor and you do something. So that's the first step. And the next thing to do is work on your hobby, what you love to do. Let's say you like to paint. Just go ahead and get the thing of paint and just. There was actually an author that I've met one time. He told me this. He said the best time to write is right when you wake up in the morning. Do not edit anything. Just start writing. Start writing right when you wake up. The instant you wake up, just start writing, because that's when the most creative thoughts that you have roll out. So that's the thing. Work on a hobby. Do what you love to do, what you're passionate about, and you won't be bored ever, and you won't get stressed.
And so I've heard from a lot of people who work from home that they begin having trouble juggling their work and home life, and they'll try to create a physical space, one of these stress spaces we're talking about, where they work. So they'll make a separate office in their house, despacho, and they will only work in there, and then they will not put anything important otherwise in there, because they don't ever want to go in that room on the weekends. After 5 p.m., they don't want to be in that room. They close the door. And that can actually make the problem worse. If that is your stressful space, you will automatically, the moment you go in there, immediately feel small and feel trapped. When you haven't even started working, it's going to be an easy day. I just have to, send this off. And that comes full circle with entrepreneurs. But a lot of, you're probably grateful in the fact that with today's technology, we can work from anywhere. There's people that work on park benches, and they get out of the space where they feel trapped. They can be a lot more productive and use a lot less time to do it.
And so overwhelming stress, you talked about being bored and getting stressed, but overwhelming stress, like too many things to do, making a list. I know it sounds so simple, that's not going to help. Every day I wake up, I make a list.
It almost sounds
if
counterintuitive.
If I try to keep it in my head, no way.
I was
so lists are my favorite
super
things
unorganized, so I agree 100% because I was super unorganized for so long, up until like very recently. Yes, so exactly. Because like if let's say you're giving a presentation or whatever, you're just like your thoughts aren't organized. You may be an articulate writer, but you're not very articulate when you speak, and so it's very important to organize your thoughts on a on like a Word document or a notebook or something. The other thing too is dictation software. So like even the dictation that's built into Microsoft Word, you can use that to say what you wanted to write, and it helps you speak more clearly.
And that's another thing, like I said, about technology making it a lot easier for you to get out of that, imaginary or real space where you make yourself feel stressful.
Yeah.
We actually have lost a few things, I think, with technology. I personally make that list in my head and have a hard time keeping it because there's a little computer in my pocket that does it for me. Everything this does for me, I stop doing, and that's kind of part of why we put some emphasis on the part of the presentation where we said, turn off that computer and get away from it. It's the cause of a lot of the stress.
It's not only a change of tasks, right? It's not only a change of tasks. It's also to actually literally decrease your stress level.
Yeah, but it's also, if you think about it, it's how you connect to the stress. Any job today, if I don't have a telephone and I sit in a room and I roll cigars, that's probably not a very stressful job. Nobody's going to call me and make come up with a surprise deadline. They're not going to, suddenly such and such is malfunctioned. We have to go pay for repairs. The technology around you really can cause stress. We look at calendar applications, reminders. A alarms as things that we can use to organize ourselves, and it's kind of counterintuitive if you think about it. If we don't use those things right, they use us, and it doesn't help.
I'm not getting used like this remote. This remote gets used, not me. Right?
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So
Take control of that stress.
that's right. So it's just important to keep checking yourself, to keep constantly reminding yourself of those things that you know for a fact will decrease your stress. For example, when it comes to foods, what kind of foods would increase your stress, or drinks, for instance, caffeine? I know caffeine increases your anxiety.
Drinking coffee at the wrong time.
Yeah, all these things, they increase your stress levels. You can actually counteract it by meditating. So where you breathe deeply, hold in for 2-3 seconds, and then breathe out slowly, and do it all through your nose. Actually, there's been a lot of studies that show that breathing in through your nose and out through your nose actually increases your stamina. So a lot of boxers, they breathe in and out through their nose, and that's it.
And one of the techniques that is frequently taught for people to pick that up quickly is called square breathing. For either 2, 3, or even 4 seconds, you inhale, you hold for that period, you exhale for that period, then you hold again. So inhale 1, 2, 3, 4, hold 1, 2, 3, 4, exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, hold 1, 2, 3, 4. And that sort of cyclic rhythm will make your mind do something else. But it's all about getting out of your own head. It's
which goes back to like emotional hygiene and emotional intelligence.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
Be aware of what stresses you out.
Yeah. Be aware of how it stresses you out, and what the stress actually looks like to others. Yeah.
I find that term pretty interesting, emotional hygiene, because you never hear someone use that word.
Well, always,
but like if you research it, you're like, oh, whoa, emotional hygiene's a thing, and it makes sense if you really think about it.
Well, in our degree plan, I always hear about emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
And
Huge thing.
it's
it's not really intelligence,
Yeah,
right? It's more of organizing
awareness.
it. It's more of organizing your emotions. It's not in terms of like being educated to have an emotion. Everybody has the same emotions.
Yeah.
But certain people have better emotional responses than others, and that's emotional hygiene.
Well, no, I think if they called it emotional hygiene, they would actually, it would come from a different place. It would have a slightly different perspective behind it. I don't think it should be normative. It's you need to explore for yourself, find out what it means for you to be stressed out. That was mainly what we wanted this presentation to be. We're not trying to tell you things you don't know about stress. You already know, half of it, 60% of it. We want you to take a more introspective look and find out what it means when you're stressed out. And also, the important thing that I've learned over the years is find out what it means when other people are stressed out. What does it make you think about them? What does it make you think about their work? What effect does it have on you, for instance?
Exactly. Yeah, I think we summed it up pretty well. But yeah, guys, that wraps up this presentation. Thank you guys so much for listening to us, and yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Bye.